when you give someone financial freedom, you include them financially, the impact on their lives is massive. Whether that's giving them ability to frankly take their own life into their own hands, right? So they decide about education for their children. They decide about, okay, I'm earning my income. I decide what I want to do with it. I have independence, let's say, to decide whether I want to stay in this relationship or not. I am financially independent, so I can, let's say, even think about divorce, right? I mean, depends on the culture, of course, but I think that's where I felt was really meaningful for me as the why I want to work on financial inclusion and financial wellness, because I felt that you empower the person holistically for their life. You give them the ability to choose. I think one thing I want to highlight is that you don't have to be a financial services expert to be able to work on a financial wellness suite.
Yep.
You can find people to work with, right? But just be aware of what your strengths are and what you can bring to the table. If you are equally passionate and curious about the problem that you want to solve, whether that's in financial wellness, then I'm sure that you will be able to find the right place to contribute. So maybe that's a myth that many of us sort of have, and that I do have to either study, I have to study finance or have a strong financial services background. I would say no, you have to have curiosity and your own strengths, and you can contribute meaningfully. One of the joys for me, which is really, I could not imagine this anywhere back like in Europe, is that whenever something happens here, I feel like whether that's 3 a.m. or, you know, even when we had like a celebration at home and things didn't work out, and I was like, wow, like now we have to move it like 3 months, right? Because people like you schedule things, you give a call to people in Pakistan and things move like magic, and next day things are done for you, and people are polite and they're like, they do it with such warmth, and it's something I really, really cherish. And I think we talk very little about it, we should much more, that this aspect of the culture is very present and it's quite unique.
Hi everybody, today I have a very special guest, someone who I found on LinkedIn, but I am actually just thinking, why did I not find you sooner than I did? Vladimira is someone who's living in Karachi right now, but if I can go through her profile, it's a list of everything that we all should be knowing already about. You're a founder of Neem, which is enabling financial wellness for underbanked communities in Pakistan. You're a founder of the Future Farm, Mental Health for Entrepreneurs. You're a host of Naked Podcast. You're an angel investor. And recently you were named as the top women entrepreneurs this year by Forbes Slovakia. Correct me if I'm wrong, but these are really big titles. And I don't know how you live up to these roles. How do you do this? But maybe we can get started by, where did this whole journey begin? Like, did you always want to be an entrepreneur from a small town of Slovakia of 12,000 people? And right now you're building an app for 220 million people. This is insane.
I know. I know. Well, thank you for having me, Sanya. It's a pleasure. I was looking forward to our conversation. And it feels quite special for me to be in Karachi right now and dialing into your podcast while you are in Europe, you know, in Finland, but still closer to my original home than right now. So that's very cool. I mean, you listed some of those endeavors, and they sound sort of, you know, glam and big, and you use that word and big titles, but to be honest, they are in some way boxes that maybe give some impression, but it's truly, I think, the journey itself. And it's never, we often sort of look towards the end outcome and we are sort of mesmerized, or we feel like it's so disconnected from us and how someone was able to achieve that, and we forget the journey. So I'm glad that you asked me how it started, because it started in the place, small town in Slovakia. And I grew up in a family of engineers. I said this many times, but in other conversations, that I don't think I ever was even surrounded by entrepreneurs or did consider sort of this pathway for myself. I thought that I will be a diplomat and sort of work in the global affairs.
Nice.
And then, which was also sort of against my family wish, because given you are sort of raised around engineers, there was some sort of family pressure. I think a lot of us know what I'm talking about pursuing the path of becoming an engineer myself. And I rebelled in some way and sort of went towards human rights and these global affairs. And I think the path really to where I am, if I just summarize it maybe in one sentence, is that it had a lot of curves and a lot of sort of decision making on the way, and being quite open-minded, and also trying to be a lot in touch with myself. And so I do a lot of sort of self-reflection, and we can deep dive into that. But yeah, I mean, the journey itself was very adventurous and certainly not narrow. So I didn't have it on my vision board that one day I'll be sort of building Neem in Pakistan.
Wow, amazing. But since you're a global citizen as well, Vladimira, like you just mentioned, you've lived in different countries as well. And you've also sort of, like fought not being an engineer at home, and then, chose your own path. It's amazing, something that I can resonate with as well. No wonder why we're sitting here talking about this, which is amazing. But I really want to know, since I think culture is super important to both of us, I'm assuming, and I think it really does make up who you are as a person, regardless of where you come from, where you live, wherever you've traveled in the world. Out of personal curiosity, I really want to know, what part of Slovakia do you bring in your life in Pakistan, and what part of the Pakistani culture do you enjoy the most?
I love that question. Nobody really asked me. Everybody's sort of like, what are the differences and similarities? But okay, so what part of Slovakia did I bring to Pakistan? I think it was just this immediate thought went into my mind that we were just celebrating Easter a few sort of days back, right? And there was a little bit of melancholy for me, because I've been now in Pakistan for 5 years, but the last period was sort of 5 months since I reconnected back home. And I had this like inside urge to reconnect with the culture, with the rituals and roots. And so I was sort of sharing that with my team here in Pakistan, and with my partner, who's also Pakistani. And some of the cultural pieces and rituals were very odd for people in Pakistan. But I felt very proud of them. I think bits of pieces of as you said, like how I was raised, which is very much in touch with nature, for instance. In some ways, it's quite easy for me to do that here in Pakistan. So for instance, we travel a lot towards the north, so we connect with the beautiful nature here. So that was easy, right? I think that I feel like the other, if I reverse it, the parts of Pakistan which I bring with myself to Slovakia, the one piece that I really sort of love over here in Pakistan is that it is so communal and family, but really communal driven. And that's something that was new to me in a sense. I was raised in much more sort of isolated, sort of smaller units, and in terms of the family. And here I feel you have your doors open to anyone, anytime. You celebrate sort of all the small and big milestones with people. So I think that communal spirit and community spirit is something that I really love. And I certainly bring more of that back home. And sometimes people are like, what do you mean we can bring everyone anytime? And I'm like, yeah, that's the way you rule. So I think that would be the one that I would highlight from Pakistan home back in Europe.
And to be honest, again, I can relate to that, because when I moved away from Pakistan, I think that is one aspect that I really missed so much, especially because coming to the northern part of Europe, people are a little more distanced. I feel like there's always, I mean, I shouldn't be joking about this, but among my friends, we had this thing where I would talk to my Estonian friends and be like, COVID came here before it actually happened, because people were doing the 2 meters before anything. So
no, I love that. I love it. I also joke the other way around. So when I speak about Slovakia, I say to people, well, it's probably the size, my city where I come from is the size of one Pakistani wedding. So people delayed, right? Because it is 2,000 and then a few thousand here.
Oh,
And
God.
I hear you. I hear you. I think those subtle jokes that do define underlying
Yep.
elements of the culture. So yeah, for sure.
Awesome. But you have such an inspiring story regarding your professional career and the way you've built Neem. I think we can get
Mm.
more into that part as well. How did Neem come into being? How did your partnership with, both of the names come into being? And then what led to Neem in the first place? Like, why Neem?
Yes. So first of all,
Yes.
let's get the names sort of sorted and in
Yes.
order. Yes. So we are building a financial infrastructure, financial technology business here in Pakistan. With sort of our vision is to, as you said before, is to enable what we call financial wellness, which is some sort of a different variation of financial inclusion to people who've been historically excluded, right? So didn't have access to the right financial products. So the name of the business is Neem, which comes from a neem tree. So this is for people who might not know, because I guess your audience is from all around the world. So neem tree is this famous South Asian tree, which is really famous. I learned for its really strong healing effects, and it's a communal tree. It's a beautiful, huge tree. And when you sit under it, you get the shade and you get the protection from mosquitoes. All of it is there. So the idea was to take that spirit and sort of scale it exponentially within the financial services world. So that's why Neem. Then my two co-founders are called Naeem and Nadeem. So for a lot of people for a long time thought that we are either called Neem or Naeem, or so it's Neem is the business, and then I have Naeem and Nadeem, and they're wonderful people. So my journey to Pakistan, I think I sort of in the last 10 years, I really sort of understood inside of myself that I would love to live and work in emerging markets. I had the opportunity and privilege to sort of work in London, work in Europe. And yes, it was also really, it was very rich in terms of learnings and the exposure that I got to all kinds of mentorship and opportunities and culture, etc. But when I had then the chance to work in Africa for some time, I just felt much more alive, to be honest. I felt that if I wake up in the morning and I put a little bit of that sort of maybe skills that I have, a little bit of knowledge and, the stamina and determination to something that I'm working on, the impact can be much larger. And I also felt, to be honest, that places like London are full of support and everything is available. And then you come to places like Karachi, or we were in Nairobi or in Ghana, and you meet this talent which is really eager to create something, and they're very self-conscious, right? I ask the right questions, but the support is very limited. So I was asking myself, why would I do this in London where there's plenty, or in Europe? Or if I have the opportunity and I can bring a little bit of that and contribute in ecosystems like in Pakistan, that made me feel alive. So I think that was probably part of my why I wanted to sort of work in emerging markets. And then it's also serendipity. So when you answer some of those questions for yourself, then you also start attracting opportunities.
Yes. I'm a big believer in that. Yeah,
me too. I think when you are clear about some parts and you put it maybe on your vision board, or you start sort of manifesting it, you start attracting the universe to you, and you are open-minded much more. So really, it was an opportunity that came my way. Nadeem, my current co-founder at Neem, he invited me in some way. He asked me if I want to join him for a project in Pakistan. And I gave it a shot. And since then, I didn't look back. It's been 5 years. I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with the man as well. So Nadeem became also my life partner. We are married right now. So the journey has its own way to evolve. But so I think it takes the some sort of inner clarity, but as well open-mindedness about the opportunities and being able to sometimes step into unknowns and maybe uncomfortable spaces. That's where I believe that's where we grow, and that's where sort of you can create for yourself.
True. No, absolutely agree with that. But maybe if we can get more into your background related to fintech, like before Neem, like what were you doing, and then how did that come about to, okay, let's, you know, build this project together with Neem?
Yeah, no, definitely. So my background is not in financial services. So I originally studied in my master's human rights. And the reason was that I somehow deep down always sort of felt related to, I guess, the basic issues that we all face, right, in our lives. And I felt that when you address those, the safety, security for each of us, then you can move on the Maslow pyramid towards the higher levels. And at the end of the day, it's towards the self-actualization and ask yourself purpose question. But unless the safety and security is there for you, right, and you have access to the basic means and rights, you can forget about the self-actualization and the purpose. So I felt like, okay, I want to start working on the baseline. And then I started looking for the right ways to do that. So I did a little bit in foreign affairs and in more in the non-profit sector, in governmental organizations. And certainly I felt like, yes, you can move the needle. But I think for me personally, I felt that it was in some way limiting, like the level of creativity and also how you can scale solutions was quite limiting. So when I met, this was again, some sort of serendipity, I met entrepreneurs in my life, and they were already building solutions, and some of them were in financial services, focused on financial inclusion. And I started learning more about how they do it and sort of what's driving them, and it was really inspiring for me. So I started working with entrepreneurs. This was back in Central Europe. I came back home to Slovakia, and I started sort of working alongside entrepreneurs. And then I got an opportunity to work for a financial services focused investor. So it was a fund in London. And again, they gave me an opportunity to work with entrepreneurs that we have invested into around the world and help them to, one, think about how they grow their business. And also second, help them think about how they grow as entrepreneurs and human beings themselves. So the first part on the business side led me to be really excited about financial inclusion and what tech and can do for empowering people on what we said at the beginning, the baseline, right? When you give someone financial freedom, you include them financially, the impact on their lives is massive. Whether that's on giving them ability to, frankly, take their own life into their own hands, right? So they decide about education for their children. They decide about, okay, I'm earning my income. I decide what I want to do with it. I have independence, let's say, to decide whether I want to stay in this relationship or not. I am financially independent, so I can, let's say, even think about divorce, right? I mean, depends on the cultures, of course. But I think that's where I felt was really meaningful for me as the why I want to work on financial inclusion and financial wellness, because I felt that you empower the person holistically for their life. You give them the ability to choose in life. So that really was, I think, maybe the starting point for Neem. And this was many years back. And when I came to Pakistan and realized that we can build such financial wellness solution here and empower so many people to really have the ability to make choices in their own lives, and then for their families and communities, made a lot of sense to me. So that was sort of I think the big why fintech and financial services. I think one thing I want to highlight is that you don't have to be a financial services expert to be able to work on a financial wellness solution.
Yep, absolutely.
You can find people to work with, right? But just be aware of what your strengths are and what you can bring to the table. If you are equally passionate and curious about the problem that you want to solve, whether that's in financial wellness, then I'm sure that you will be able to find the right place to contribute. So maybe that's a myth that many of us sort of have, and that I do have to either I have to study finance or have a strong financial services background. I would say no, you have to have curiosity and your own strengths, and you can contribute meaningfully.
No, absolutely agree with that for sure. But maybe if we can also talk more about Neem in terms of Vladimir, like maybe explain how it works, who is it for? It's a fintech API, as I understood, for enabling diverse businesses and platforms. So is it like a B2B sort of platform, or who is it exactly for?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. We love to talk about it because it's something that we live by, you know, we breathe it every day. So basically what we're trying to do, I'll start from a different place. So when you come to Pakistan, most probably you would be using on your phone, whether that's a smartphone or it's a basic featured phone, you would be using some digital service. So let's say maybe you would be taking Kareem to move around. You would be maybe using Food Panda for ordering orders, right, for the evening. If you're a farmer, let's say from a farming family, you might be using a platform that provides you daily advisory services about the weather and how to take care of the crops or your, you know, your animals. The list goes on. There are many telehealth platforms, so you might be, you know, in relation with your doctor digitally through your phone. And now imagine the situation. So you're using those services, you know, those digital platforms, you have a relationship with them. And what you want to do is when you take that service, you want to be able to pay for that service directly from your phone. And in that relationship, that Food Panda Kareem's, Bakar Kisan, which is the name of agri-tech in Pakistan. And you also want to be, if you're the farmer, you want to be able to, let's say, take a small loan from the platform that you've been developing your relationship for the last 5 years, let's say. So you don't want to go to another financial institution to take a loan, to make a payment, to take insurance, to take care of your financial needs somewhere else. So that's where Neem comes in. You will not encounter, you will not meet Neem as a brand on the market. What we do, we come in from the back end. We enable those digital platforms like Bakar Kisan and many others. And you as the end user, if you're the farmer or you're yourself, you'll be able, thanks to Neem and the other platform, to be able to pay, take a loan, hopefully in the future, make some savings, be able to invest, all through that one or the other platform that you're already using. So that's sort of the essence. People call it embedded finance. So that's sort of the fintech term. And the idea, it's embedded because it's embedded, it's integrated. So it's integrated in your financial life cycle, in your life cycle of what you're already using. So that's the idea of what we are trying to build.
Amazing. Okay, now coming back to your founder experience, Vladimir, I would love to know, starting a business in Pakistan, coming in as an international co-founder as well. You know, it has its own sets of challenges and learnings. You know, you go through certain roadblocks and you start learning more about, you know, how the business environment is, how the culture is, how to build a team, how to build that team culture within, you know, the new hires that you have. So how were those challenges or, you know, learnings for you?
There were certainly learnings. I'm not sure that many challenges, to be honest. It's been so far, it's been really, I mean, great, but yes, massive learning, but great experience. Maybe I'll start from the wider ecosystem. So I think one thing that I've learned coming in here is that doing business in the context of a country like Pakistan, if I would want to come here myself, with all the experience I have and, you know, like knowledge, and yes, I worked in other markets, I think it would be still very, very hard for me to do something meaningful here on my own. And I don't mean on my own just as I would, of course, I would build a team, but still, I think my realization that for me to, and not just me, but for us to build something meaningful in the context of Pakistan, I could not do it without my co-founders. They know Pakistan so well. They know what are the nuances of navigating negotiations, right? It's very different.
Oh my God, the negotiating part is on another level. Yeah.
So it's also the heavily trust-based environment, and I think that's something that I was quite conscious of, and it was important for me. And I confirmed that, yes, it was the right decision to build the team and build Neem with the strong co-founders who have a deep knowledge of the market. They have a connectivity to the local ecosystem. So in that way, it made it much easier for me.
Yeah.
So that would be certainly one. If anyone else would want to come, I'm not saying no, but make sure that you find partners who know the market, right? So that is certainly one. I think the other part I would love to highlight is that I actually really, really enjoy building a team here.
Amazing.
So I'm going to say one thing. I think if I compare maybe my experience from Europe versus Pakistan, when I came here, I felt that people were a little bit more sugarcoating any type of feedback, right? So you have a conversation and you sort of want to get to the crux of it. And I'm used to like be very sort of, straight and direct. And it was a little sugarcoating and going around, and especially when there is assumingly some sort of a hierarchy.
Yes.
And the really, really exciting part for me is that we very openly try to take that away within our team. And the part that I really enjoy is that I think that people love it. The fact that we are building that type of a culture where the team is, we are founders, but we are trying to build very peer-to-peer relationship where we speak direct. It's a safe space. So the safe space is something that we try to invest a lot into. And it's been very exciting to see people losing the layers, and the masks. So that's something that I really, really enjoy. And it's quite nurturing to be able to also help create such space for people where they don't have to pretend and maybe just come as a different human being to work and then walk as a different human being to their homes.
Yeah,
I think that's the part that I certainly felt that is a little different or new to the environment over here.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And the reason why I was laughing is because this is my reality too. When I came here, I was just like, it was so hard to get through, because I think in Pakistan, like in our culture, I feel like people pleasing is so deep rooted. We literally, like, it's sort of embedded in our like upbringing, in a sense. When you're growing up, that's how you are at home with your parents, because again, there is that level of respect, that hierarchy, that we're talking about, that then reflects into the work environments that we move to later on in life. But for me, it was the same thing. Like when I came here, I came in with that people-pleasing attitude, but then I was soon hitting roadblocks, with that. And I was like, what is going on? But then I realized,
very, very known by, being really cutthroat and direct. So I can imagine.
True, but it took me like at least now, like 5 years in, I feel like I'm much better now with, creating that dynamics with people, because again, it takes time to learn. So for you, like back then, like in Pakistan, and then for me here, it's so amazing because I've never had this conversation with anyone. Like I couldn't like build that relatability. So I'm really happy that we can do that on this call. Thank you.
No, likewise. And I think there's much more there. I mean, even building the business, maybe just one thing to highlight, one of the joys for me, which is really, I could not imagine this anywhere back like in Europe, is that whenever something happens here, I feel like whether that's 3 a.m. or, even when we were prepared, we had like a celebration at home and things didn't work out. And I was like, wow, like now we have to move it like 3 months, right? Because people like you schedule things. You give a call to people in Pakistan and things move like magic. And next day things are done for you and people are polite and they're like, they do it with such warmth. And it's something I've really, really cherish. And I think we talk very little about it. We should much more, that this aspect of the culture is very present and it's quite unique.
Yes. Wow. No, thank you for bringing that on the show. Thank you. No, it definitely is worth highlighting, because I feel like we do have this, like jugaad. Have you heard about this?
Oh, yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have to get more into detail, but yes, that is exactly what it is. Like we love the little hacks. Like as soon as something can be done quickly or in a shorter period of time, we're all in. So,
Yeah.
but I think there was one more thing that I really want to talk to you about, Vladimira, is that there's this recent post that I came across on LinkedIn. And I really wanted to get more, like just try to understand your perspective better, because it was so beautiful the way you wrote it and the way it was talking about like co-founder marriage document in a sense. Because I feel like even in the startup world, wherever it is, regardless of Pakistan, regardless of Europe, wherever you build a startup, having a strong co-founding team is very essential to make sure that not just for the short term, but also for the long run, like there's so many roadblocks, so many challenges that you will go through together as a team, trying to figure it out, if the product works, doesn't work, customer feedback, team building, all of these things, so you really need people around you who act like a support system, less than like more than anything else. So I really want to understand like this concept that you guys had at Neem. Maybe we can share more about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, if you look on the statistics, like why companies, and not just startups, but businesses in general or organizations, why they don't make it, the co-founder relationship and co-founder conflict is very, very high on the list of the reasons. So one, we were very aware of this because I would say we've had the privilege of either working with other entrepreneurs or building other businesses ourselves before. So at Neem, all three of us, we are very conscious that walking into this, we're going to invest as much as possible in doing this the way we feel today is the right way to do. Right. So one of the sort of practices that we did was what you are asking me about, which is that we build this co-founder marriage agreement, which basically is some sort of a manifesto where we collectively agreed on some key principles that we want to sort of respect and live by in that relationship. And some of them are, I'll give you some examples. So one of them is, for instance, about leaving the ego in front of the door. Because, when you sort of talk from an ego place where you act or make decisions, when the ego is driving you, then it's really hard. The most probably the communication is not going to be effective and you're not going to arrive to the authentically like good result. So we sort of catch each other a lot. We sort of say like, hey, I don't think, maybe have a check-in with yourself. So that was one. We have principles, again, other principles around how do we communicate with each other. We have principles around our commitment to the business. So we made it very clear with each other and aligned that all of us are going to be committed to the business full-time for a certain number of years. We also have principles around respect, and we sort of try to deconstruct like what that even means. So the guidelines are quite specific. And what we do with this manifesto is that we have those founders retreats every month, actually, right now. At first we had them every quarter, now we try every month. So we have a time where we come together, three of us every month for like a half a day, and we start with the manifesto. So we read through it, we refresh it for each other, and we give each other feedback, whether we feel that we live by it or not. And then if there are some spaces where we feel that we are not in line with it, then we talk about it. So I think it's been something really useful to us, that we have sort of this compass that we can go back to, because if you don't do this work at the beginning and shit hits the fan in a bad French, then it's really hard, because that's when emotions comes in, and often we don't sort of we're not guided from the place of clarity. So that's why we felt it's important to have this agreement and alignment up front and have something to come back to. And I would certainly recommend it to other co-founding teams.
No, for sure. It sounds really like very healthy in like essence as well, if I hear that. And in practice, I feel like it can definitely like have such a strong impact on any team that, you know, such a practice is a part of. So it's really nice to hear about that. Thank you. One more thing that I really want to talk about is you're a very strong advocate for mental health. And as a founder, mental health is sometimes like overlooked. It's not sometimes the first priority for founders. It's more so, okay, let me just, you know, one more thing. Let me get that business out of the door. Let me get this deal first, and then I'm going to take care of the rest. So I really want to understand, like, one thing, how, for example, for a founder, I believe, and it might be an assumption, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. When you're building up something from scratch, you're emotionally attached to it as well, right? In that sense, like there's a lot of your brand and your identity is very closely tied to what you're building. Any feedback that you receive, if it's negative, you take it emotionally. And when that emotional sort of comes into, it turns into a baggage, like you said, and then can affect your life in a very negative way as well in the future. So how do you as a founder practice like letting go of attachment and then also prioritizing your mental health?
Yeah. So thank you for asking, first of all, because I think we don't talk about it enough, right?
True.
So I think in more conversation like this one and on more sort of forums, we should be upfront about it, because indeed it's a big part of the journey. Because first of all, we show up every day to work and to our teams and with our co-founders as humans. And in that capacity, we show up with our physical health and mental and emotional and as a whole. So how I practice and sort of how I work on the attachment. So it's a real thing for sure. I would say maybe even more so for first-time founders, because you are creating something which is so closely knitted to who you are and your identity. I think the one sort of useful practice for me is just to keep reminding myself that this is something that we dedicated most of our time to. But that I have many other layers and parts of my life as well. And that reminder can be often through conversation or meditation, but I think the more sort of even helpful part is that I practice actively also the other identities and other parts of me. And that can mean that I'm a friend, I love to dance, I love spending time in nature, we love to party, so we try to do that. I really enjoy meditation, many other layers, right? And practicing those helps me to get out of that bubble often, that this is all that I am. So reminding myself that I am much more than Neem, and Future Farm for that matter. And I'm more than the activities that I do, right? As a human being, and practicing those parts of me, whether they're hobbies or they're relationships outside of work, that has been quite helpful to me. And maybe just one last one is that when I am in the rabbit hole and I find myself sort of, cycled, a conversation with my therapist always helps. So I'm an active advocate and promoter and practitioner of therapy. And Sarah, who's my therapist, she helps me with she puts a mirror in front of me. She gives me some really useful, helpful guiding questions. And most of the time I walk away much more refreshed and sort of with a lighter sense of being from those conversations. So that's sort of another one. Yeah.
Wow. No, I think for me too, like these kind of conversations really do help, deconstruct your belief system. That is sometimes more so the limiting beliefs that we have for ourselves.
Definitely.
So self-doubt, imposter syndrome, am I even worth it? All of these questions that we have in our head as founders, as normal, everyday, people, regardless of what titles we have in our lives. So I'm really glad that we're talking about this. And it shouldn't be a taboo regardless of any culture. It is something that is real. So I did realize that growing up, it wasn't something that was spoken out widely at home or in schools or universities. We didn't even talk about it to our closest friends, for that matter. You would talk about the emotional turmoil that you would be facing every now and then, but the mental health and mental wellness wasn't a topic at all. And I think for me now more than ever, I do believe that it should be something that is normal. You know, all of us go through it. It's just a matter of time that we start talking about it. And the more we talk about it is when we let go of a lot of things that are just built up, you know, in our little brain up there. So I think talk about.
Definitely. And I think also just figuring out that we're in all of this together, right? So
Yes.
what I can see is that when I open up or share with my team that, let's say, this is what I'm going through, right? And which I do, and as well as my other two co-founders, I think it sets a strong sort of example for them to feel safe that, oh, wow, okay, I mean, it is we are normalizing it. It is okay, right, to also talk about these maybe emotions and feelings and state of beings. And sometimes it's really just about sharing and listening, not necessarily looking for advice. But yeah, I think that conversation with others and bringing it up in our chats with friends or in our conversations with the teams, I think it's also super important. So yeah, we try to do that ourselves as well, Neem.
That's amazing. That's awesome. But I think in terms of advice, since we're also coming towards the end of the show, and it's been such a pleasure, honestly, to talk to you today, to even have this conversation. We started from Vancouver and then Pakistan and then Neem and then, you know, beautiful. Thank you so much, mashallah. Really nice. One last question from my side is, do you have, since this community is more catered towards people in their 20s, and I feel like this is most of our, you know, like habits start forming us as humans. It's when we, you know, start adding more layers, shedding more layers. Of course, that's a continuation of process throughout our lives, but a lot of foundational core starts developing during this time. So I just want to, like your advice, considering you've traveled the world, you've seen different cultures, you're working in Pakistan, which is not the most easiest environment to be in. But still you're navigating so well, mashallah, which is amazing. So what is your advice to people in Pakistan or outside as well, sending a message to Slovakia or, you know, wherever in the world? What is your advice to people in their 20s on how to invest their time, money, and energy?
Okay. I have two parts of the answer. So one, and I think it's maybe also what I wish that someone would tell me, right, when I was in my 20s, would be to design or my decisions and my journey, right, and my wants and desires less about what my family and my friends and what I read around me, what the other people want and want of me. But I wish that I would be spending, and I want to send this message out there, that if you can start spending more time looking inside, and that can be through, you know, like small things. You can maybe experience or experiment with practice of journaling. So journaling is basically you take a notebook of any kind, beautiful, you know, place, which is just for you. It's sort of a diary of sense, and start putting any thoughts that you are carrying in your mind, in your body, onto the paper. And then start seeing what's sort of developing for you. Like, is there some pattern? What is it that, what questions are you carrying inside of yourself? So journaling is very sort of useful, helpful practice. So I would maybe recommend that as an experiment. But also, I mean, most of your audience is digitally native. I would say Google, what are some of the useful sort of questions, self-inquiry questions for myself? So you can start spending, you know, maybe you can start like once a week for half an hour. Just take the notebook or just sit somewhere calm and think about, how do you feel about some of those questions? What is it that you want, right? And maybe just starting feeling, what is it that other people want of me, and what is it truly that I feel? And then, so I think that that's where I would start, because even in my journey, to be honest, I certainly, my decisions in my 20s were heavily influenced by outside expectations and me wanting to meet that expectation rather than truly looking inside and asking myself, like, what is it that I really want for myself, even though it might not feel glamorous, or, you know, my parents might not be necessarily okay with that, but let me at least find out what it is, right?
Wow.
So I wish probably that part. And then the second part is somehow related, maybe as a follow-up, which is that I would certainly recommend for all of you out there to be brave and courageous, to reach out to other people who are already on journey that you might feel inspired by, or you feel like, oh, this is interesting, like, how did you do that, right? Which sometimes feel like so far away and so remote and maybe unachievable. I would certainly tell you, use all the means, whether that's social media, LinkedIn, mail people. I could not sort of recommend this more. People usually are very open to give back, you know, on their journeys. They might spend a half an hour with you, and maybe they introduce you to 5 other people. And that's how you expand your network and your horizons. So be courageous, go out there, connect with people. Once you have a little bit of clarity, what is it that you are curious and interested about in the world?
Awesome. I'm so glad that I got a chance to connect with you. It was also
that's exactly how it happened, right? You reached out and here you are, we're talking, and I know what, you know, where this takes us. So yes, indeed, that's the example. That's the way.
True. On that note, thank you so much, Vladimira, for today. It's been amazing, honestly, for me to even like get to know you better. And now I feel like I know you much more than just a LinkedIn profile, you know, so for me, that means a lot. So thank you so much. Your journey is super inspiring, not just for people in Pakistan, but outside as well. So I'm hoping whoever watches this takes some nuggets of wisdom, and, you know, starts applying that to their lives as well. And for you, I just want to wish you good luck wherever you go ahead with Neem, and outside of Neem as well, with different roles in your life. So yeah, wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I don't take it for granted. I really, truly also enjoyed the conversation, with lots of great spirit and energy. And thank you for giving me the space to also share the story, and hopefully to connect with your audience. And feel free to also reach out if there is someone out there that maybe this resonated with. I'm happy to share my email. So yeah, shoot me a message.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.